So I am not in the best mood. I basically woke up this morning planning to film a video. I wanted to make this like 1-star review video of like reacting to 1-star reviews of my favorite series. And I went and I sat down and I filmed an entire video, and then I ended up absolutely hating it. And it got me into such a bad mood. I was reading all these reviews that were like pages upon pages long. Like literally, like it took me like 6 minutes just to read the review, not even reacting to it. Like it was a very long reviews. And I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever read. Like, you're just like blatantly being mean to a book for no reason. Like, none of that was like actually good evidence as to why that book sucked. Anyway, it got me into a horrible funk of a mood. And I went after I filmed it and I sat down and I tried editing it to see if I could still like, scrounge something up from it. And I ended up like hating it so much. I'm like, if I can't watch this, nobody else can. So then I'm like, okay, do I go and pick out a book or do I get some work done? So I had a client who wanted to talk to me about some work that he needed to get done. So I gave him a call, and he basically needs something that I so don't want to do. I work for myself. I own my own graphic design company, which basically means I do everything. And therefore, even if I'm not down to work, I gotta work. And even if I don't want to do the work, I still gotta do it. And that's not for everybody, but it works for me. The problem is I'm not in a good mood. And when I'm not in a good mood, I don't want to work. And anyway, I don't want to do the work that he wanted me to do. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to enjoy any book that I read if I don't at least get started. So you know what I did? I got started on my work. And you know what happened? My electricity and my internet decided to go out on a beautiful sunny day with no wind, no rain, nothing. My electricity is out. And therefore, my battery decided to die very quickly because I use a lot of really big softwares that just beat up my battery. So I got like an hour or two into working, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, my computer's gonna die. I can't keep going. So I had to stop. And now I'm sitting here and I'm like, but I'm in a bad mood and I don't want to pick a book and I can't work and I'm gonna kill my phone battery. So like, seriously, what do I do? So you know what I decided to do? I decided to start a vlog. So my one issue is what is this vlog actually about? Is this a reading vlog? I haven't even chosen a book yet to read. How long is this vlog gonna be? I have no idea. Are we just gonna hang out with each other while I'm in a horrible mood? That's probably what it's gonna be. So I guess what I'm supposed to do next is go pick a book to read, because if not, I'm just gonna waste my day away. So I'll be back soon.
A few moments later.
You want to know something funny? The second that I get up to come and pick a book, the electricity comes back on, which means that if I pick a book now, then I'm just being stupid because I should really go back to work. So like, seriously, this is just how my day's going. It's not working out. Can I please go back to sleep and just wake up tomorrow? At least one good thing is happening today, and that is that I'm hitting 14K on Instagram, which is really exciting. And if only I was in a better mood so that I could celebrate even more. But thank you so much to everybody on Instagram for following me.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
So I ended up working the rest of the afternoon, and I didn't even get any work done. I was doing all of this research for this project that I have to start, and I couldn't even find what I needed, but I decided that I'm going to read tonight, and I'm not going to keep working only because I'm too stressed and I got to calm down a little bit. So we're going to make myself feel better by reading Pretty Reckless by L.J. Shen. So I didn't choose this book. Instagram actually chose it. I gave them 3 options and they went with this one, so I'm gonna read it. So this is actually the first book in the Sinner of Saints? No, the Sinner of Saints is the original series. This is the spin-off series, and it is called, what is it called again? It's called All Saints High. Okay, so this is All Saints High, and basically it's a collection of 3 books. And in these 3 books, you are following the children from the original Sinner of Saints series. So I loved the original Sinner of Saints series. It's vicious, ruckus, scandalous, and then Bane. And all those books were so freaking good. And throughout the 4 books, you slowly get to see each person that has their own book. You get to see them slowly have children. And then basically these 3 books are going to be their children. So I actually already know a little bit about all of these characters because I've met them already. But I don't remember exactly what they're all about, who is who, but I bet that once I start reading, I'm gonna get it. But anyway, I've decided to make this vlog into an All Saints High reading vlog because, Instagram chose it. So we're gonna be starting with Pretty Reckless, and this is an enemies to lovers. So all I know about this series, just by the way, is that it all takes place in the All Saints High School. Like the original series, you kind of got to see how all of the main characters in that series became friends when they all went to All Saints High, but you were kind of more following like adults, and it was a lot more of an adult series. And this is more of a new adult series, and you're kind of following them all when they're actually in high school and they're gonna have their own sort of romance. So this one is following, you know what, I'm not even gonna say it. I'll say when I start reading it, but basically enemies to lovers, high school, almost positive, all of the guys are on like a football team. So this is gonna be fun, and hopefully it will get me into a better mood.
The next day.
So last night, I only ended up getting like 63 pages into this book. Yeah, only because I ended up finishing that project that I was trying to work on the whole yesterday. I finally found what I was looking for. And then once I found it, I'm like, oh, I should just do the project so that I could get it to my client so that he can review it over the weekend. And I knew I wouldn't have time to do it today, and today's Friday. So I'm like, you know what, let's get it out of the way. So I did it, and then I ended up like picking this book up around like 8 o'clock. And I totally could have read more than just 63 pages, but I was still like in my head. I kept checking my phone, and I was just like, I wasn't so down to read, so I only got that far, but I very much enjoyed what I already read. So can we all agree that like anything that happens in the first 50 pages, even if it's not on the back of the book, isn't really spoilers? Okay, now that we're on the same page, basically the book starts out with a prologue, and we kind of get to see where these two people actually met, how they met, and also how they became enemies. So it's basically like Daria is one of the children from the Sinner of Saints book. She's actually the daughter of the one friend group from Sinners of Saints that didn't get their own book, but he was in all of the other books, so we do know his original story, and that is coming to play a lot in this book. I actually really like how it reminded us of where everyone was at from Sinners of Saints. Like we already got to meet all of the children that are going to be in all of the other books and who their parents were. Like it reminded me all of everything, and like we jumped back into the world really nicely. So like thumbs up to that and how that all happened. But basically Daria, we met her in Sinner of Saints, and she was like 6 or 8 years old at the time, and we already knew that she was like a real bitch. Like she was a real like not nice to all the other kids and whatever. We kind of got to see a little snippet of that, and now that we're in this book, we really get to see that a lot more. And basically the prologues, she was 14 years old, and she was basically really jealous of this kid that her mother gave a lot of extra attention to. Like she was always really jealous of, like, I guess like she was always like the bottom of her family poll, and like, you know, nobody ever really, I guess, cared that much about her, but she's really rich and popular and she gets everything she wants. So it's like, what should she complain about? But she always was like very internally jealous, and that's kind of why she was a bitch to everybody. But anyway, she ends up doing something really bad when she's 14 that creates a domino effect that really kind of ruins Penn's life. And because of that, he turns from like kind of having a crush on her and like secretly stalking her for a year when he was 14 years old to hating her and putting her on his like to kill list sort of thing. Anyway, now they're 18 years old, and they've kind of been avoiding each other like this whole time. Like he is the top football player in his school, and she is like the cheerleader in her school. So like whatever, they've just been avoiding each other, and he still absolutely hates her, and she still feels really bad for what happened when they were kids, and she feels like really guilty about it and everything. And anyway, the story starts out where his mother overdoses and dies because he is really poor and he lives in like the slums and everything. And anyway, her mother was always really obsessed with his little sister, who was the girl that Daria was like always jealous of. So once she heard that like his mother died and he has nowhere to live, she basically goes and like picks him up and brings him to Daria's home and is like, you're gonna live with us because I don't want you ruining your life. And Daria is really uncomfortable with that, and basically everything is gonna start to go downhill from here, and Penn is basically dead set on ruining her life. So I'm only at the point where like Penn is now living in her house as her like foster brother, which also is just like kind of said on the back of the book, so that's really not much of a spoiler. But anyway, now Penn is kind of in a really prime spot to ruining her life, and we're already seeing her like start to freak out about this because like, I don't know, she just, the way that she is, you know, being explained in this book, I'm a real fan of. Like, I'm really feeling for her, like the reasons why she's being a bitch and why she's jealous. Like, I'm already itching out of my skin for her. Like, I feel so bad for her and the situation that she's in. And also, have you ever read Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas? So the guy from Punk 57 is very much reminding me of Penn in this book, because that whole like bully aspect, I'm out to kill you and ruin your life sort of thing, it's feeling very very similar to me. So if you were a fan of that, then like I have a feeling you're gonna like this book, but I'm really like too early on to like say that for sure. But at the moment, I'm getting those vibes. So anyway, I am hoping to read this whole book today, even though I'm gonna be out all day. I actually have an appointment to get my hair done. I mean, not my color or anything. I'm getting a keratin treatment done. So it's actually gonna be really annoying to vlog because I'm not gonna be able to wash my hair for like 4 days and my hair is gonna be like pin stick straight, but it's okay. We're gonna get to that problem when it occurs. But anyway, I have a keratin appointment, which means that that's gonna be like 3 or 4 hours. And then I'm gonna have to go grocery shopping after that. So I'm probably not gonna be home until like 3 or 4 o'clock. But once I'm home, I plan to read this all day. So yeah.
6.5 hours later.
So I got home a couple of hours ago. I went grocery shopping, I got my keratin done, and now my hair is like super stick straight and I can't wash it for 4 days. So I know that it looks funny now, but just wait until we keep getting through this vlog because it's just gonna start looking worse and worse. But basically, I got halfway through this book officially, and I feel like I wanna tell you how I'm feeling about it in the moment, only because I know that I'm about to get further into this story and then I'm not gonna be able to give you like any more updates because it's just gonna be like spoiler upon spoiler. But basically, I'm very much enjoying the read. I'm really liking the writing style and just like flipping the page. I keep wanting to know what's going to happen next. But then when I'm trying to like, you know, overanalyze the actual storyline and the plot and everything, I'm a little bit like all over the place. I feel like it's slightly messy, but I can't even really like pinpoint as to why. I feel like this story is extremely character driven. Like I very much understand where Daria is, the girl. She's a very jealous person, and you know, I totally see why she is the way she is and why she does the things that she does. And then we have Penn, who is the guy, and I get his motives and I get why he absolutely hates her and why it has this like enemies-esque sort of bullying thing going on. But then there's also so many questions surrounding him and his motives that is somewhat confusing me. And also like on the first quarter of this book, they already started like really like jumping on their attraction for each other. Like they just started like making out here and there, even though like they were in the middle of fighting, and then they would just like end it by making out. And like, I'm all for that, but it's also like, I don't know, it's not fully like explaining it. Like, I'm just a little bit like, okay, but you could have like held off for a little bit slightly. Like I'm very into the enemies, but then like, you're not actually fully there if you keep making out with each other. But like, it's a little bit more than that. I'm not really explaining it so perfectly, but basically I'm slightly just unsure about how I feel about the progression of their relationship. It's like 1 second they're enemies, and then 1 second they're like secret best friends who like only get each other and like they're just like in it together sort of thing. And then they're making out again, and then they're like, never talk to me again. And it's a little bit wishy-washy. And even though I'm following it, I'm also somewhat not following it. And then the biggest thing as to why I wanted to update you now is because we just got to the halfway point, and something that I totally thought was going to, you know, be the catalyst of like somewhat of the end of the book actually happened like midpoint in the book. And now I'm like, where's the story gonna go now? Like, I feel like a lot has already happened, and I don't really see, it's like we're kind of like going on the story, and it's like I don't really know what direction it's about to go in like every sense of the story, and therefore I'm like slightly confused. But again, I'm not really complaining. At the moment, I feel like this book is like out of 4 stars, out of like pure enjoyment and wanting to flip the page. But it depends on how it actually ends and how everything plays out as to what I'm actually gonna give this book a rating for. Like, it might end up getting a 5 stars if like the second half totally blows me away story-wise. If not, we're probably gonna be closer at a 4, only because, I don't know, at the moment, I'm a little bit wishy-washy on the actual plot line, but I'm liking the characters. I'm unsure about the actual development. It feels a little bit like, you know, not in a straight line sort of thing, but whatever. Basically, I'm slightly confused, but also I'm very much enjoying it. So really, why did I bother updating you? I have no idea, because none of that made sense.
The next day.
So I ended up finishing this last night, and unfortunately I didn't love it. I gave it a 3 stars at the end of the day, just because, I don't know, everything I already said of like, you know, the story kind of going like up, down, left, right, like it was just somewhat all over the place. And I felt like there was also like a little bit too much going on. And in the specific bully aspect, I wasn't the hugest fan of that and how everything with it played out. Also, the bullying came from somebody that I didn't really even expect it to come from. And I wasn't a fan of like like that whole storyline, but I can't really say because it's spoilers. But anyway, in general, I wasn't very impressed by this, but I did love how all of the kids that we originally met that are going to be in the other books in this series were always on Daria's side, and how they had this little like, you know, we're a team sort of thing going on, and I really liked seeing them, and I'm very excited to go and read book 2 and 3 because I already know who they're about, and I'm just like, I'm dying to see their stories because I was a huge fan of them even before I started this series, but then seeing them in this and seeing them start to get developed, I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to see what happens. So that was a positive. And then also, like, throughout this book there was this whole like poetry thing going on, and at the beginning of each chapter there was this little quote that like kind of was explaining like the vibe of the chapter, like what was going on at the time, and I really enjoyed seeing them, that I actually like took a little note of each one that I wanted to share with you. So honestly, I'm sharing like 90% of them. I liked almost all of them, but it doesn't really matter. Anyway, I'm gonna read through them like one at a time, but I'm not really gonna say which chapter they're from because I'm skipping a couple. It started with a lemonade and ended with my heart. This my pretty reckless rival is how our screwed up story starts. The night before senior year, I spotted you on those bleachers. You looked adorable, your heart cracking for a guy who would love to smash a foot in it and crush it into pieces. While you were worried about me, I fucked your best friend from cheer. She gave me a blowjob and a beer. I still hate you, make no mistake, and would love nothing more than to see your pretty neck break. I hate lying to your face, but I love watching what I can do to you when my mouth says things that undo you. He wants to let her go, but can't seem to set her free, because if she does end up returning, she'll see who he fell in love with and flee. I wish I could rewrite you out of my life, but all your pages are highlighted, dog-eared and thumbed to death. I can no longer read you, but you are still my favorite poem. There is nothing more poetically inspiring than loving the right person at the wrong place at the wrong time. Behind every untrusting girl is a boy who made her that way. Love is so much like death, certain, absolute, and out of control. Why didn't you tell me we were in love? Why did you wait for me to find out when you broke my heart? This one was one of my favorites. I think this is the one that I read and then I'm like, oh my god, I have to share some of these, and then I went back and like retracted all the ones that I wanted to share. But anyway, this one says, falling in love is similar to deja vu. It's finding a home in a stranger. When I met you 4.5 years ago, I saw who you were. I just had to figure out who I was. So I gave you something to make sure I can seek you out again, and that maybe you'll fall in love with whoever I was too. Oh, it's so nice how like it's explaining the story without even like, you know, saying anything like too detailed, so like I could actually share them with you without feeling like I'm giving away spoilers. I don't know. But then there was also one that was in this chapter. It wasn't like the head of a chapter. Anyway, it says, being sorry for breaking something doesn't make it whole again. And I feel like that doesn't really like hit as hard unless you know the contents of the story. But like at the time that I read that, I'm like, oh my god, I loved that quote. Loving you is like listening to a song for the first time and somehow knowing all the lyrics. And the last one I'm gonna share also happens to be like the actual like last entry. If you've read this book, you know what I mean. Anyway, it says, love is a battlefield and I think I fucking died. And then it says last entry. But anyway, I don't know, those were all of the quotes that I really liked. And I do want to just mention that I very much liked the ending and how the whole ending played out and how we got a lot of closure from like all aspects of the story. So the ending did really save this book for me, but I don't think this is something I would ever reread, especially because it's part of like, you know, a 7-book joined series, whatever you want to call it. And there are so many more better books in this series that I would reread first. But I am happy that I got to see Daria's story. And what I'm very excited for is that next I get to see Broken Night, which happens to be Luna and Night's story, which I have been waiting for since I met both of them in the Center of Saints series. So I already knew the second I read like a couple of chapters where they're involved, I'm like, they're going to be getting their own book in the All Saints High series. Like I just knew it. And then we got to see a little bit of them in Pretty Reckless. And then now that I'm up to Broken Night, I'm really crossing my fingers that I'm going to love this book, because like this is just going to be a, I guess, friends to lovers, but also like it's always been you sort of romance. Like I already know a little bit about it, and I'm very much itching to start this, which I'm about to start. But also I did want to say that if this doesn't end up going well, then I was also like semi-warned. I've been talking to a lot of people on Instagram who've already read this series, and they've all been saying mixed things about like all of these books. So I can't really get a good vibe on like if one of them is going to be absolutely amazing or not. But anyway, Let's see how this one goes.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
So I'm up to page 117 and I'm very much liking the story. It's being built up extremely well. I'm so invested in these characters that that's actually why I'm not so much liking it. So we have Luna and Knight, and they've been best friends basically since the day they were born. Luna is basically mute. She can talk, but she just chooses not to. And Knight is like her protector and like her best friend. And they literally have been inseparable their whole life. And throughout the beginning of the book, you get to see a little bit of like a buildup of them, you know, as children being best friends and why they're so close and all of that sort of stuff. And now they're 18 and 19, and basically for the past couple of years they've been just like messing with each other. Like Knight's been like getting with a lot of girls to try and make Luna jealous and finally admit that, you know, they're meant to be together, and Luna is like desperately in love with him also, except like she's just like not taking that next step for certain reasons. And basically they both are absolutely in love with each other, and they both kind of know that each other loves each other, but they're just like not taking that next step. And whatever, it's making sense as to why, but basically what I'm not liking about this book is the way that they're going about the actual story. Like they're just making each other really jealous and like getting with other people, and therefore I'm getting really jealous. And I have a really big thing on cheating. I don't like reading books that have cheating involved, and even though technically these two characters are not cheating on each other, they kind of are, up to the point where even they feel like they're cheating on each other, because that's how close they are and how in love with each other they are and how much they know that they're meant to be together. And because of that, I'm getting bothered. Like the whole time I'm reading this book, like my heart's just racing, and like I don't like how the story is playing out, but only because my heart is breaking for them, because they're both like basically cheating on each other, and I just want them to like be together. And it was bothering me so much that I did skip to the end of the book. I do this sometimes. I'm very into spoilers because it helps with my anxiety a little bit. But I skipped to the end just so I can see for myself that they're gonna have a happily ever after, even though I know they were going to. And also when I was at the end of the book, I saw something that was gonna happen in this book, and now I understand how they are going to turn it around and their like romance is actually going to somewhat happen. And I'm excited for the idea of the storyline in my head. I haven't gotten there yet, but I know where it's going. So basically, I am very much enjoying this book, like way more than Pretty Reckless. Like this one is way more just invested on their relationship, and I'm seeing the progression way better, and it's like I'm able to focus on it more. Like there's not as much going on, and I'm very much liking that and appreciating that. And also I'm like so freaking invested in these characters. I want to just cry for them that they're both breaking each other's hearts, but at the same time like my heart is breaking, and like literally it's like it's just breaking my heart to read this little bit. But like I guess that's in a good way. And also like I'm only feeling this way because like I am very weird about cheating, and like, you know, it's just there's so much cheating vibes going on that like I'm bothered. But yeah, so basically I don't know, that's where I'm up to. I'll probably give you another update before I finish it, but like I seriously, I can't put this book down because I need them to be together and happy already, because like whatever, my heart just broken for them. What can I say?
3 hours later.
So I'm currently at page 225, and I really wanted to share a little like moment with you, just because like I hardly ever cry in books, and I swear like I'm like on the verge of like I just can't handle it. Anyway, I'll just read it to you. It says, "Can I tell you a secret? I love your brother and your father more than I love myself. I would die for them, fight for them until the bitter end, go against the whole world for them. But you, I've always loved you just a tiny bit more, my regal rebel boy, my legendary hellraiser, my sad prince, my unlikely savior, my beautiful broken knight." I always love finding when like, you know, the name of the book is like in the book. And then he's like, "What if tomorrow never comes?" And then she says, "Then my darling boy will make the best of today." And I know you don't really understand possibly what is going on in the book, that like little thing just like meant so much to me to read, but like it literally like ripped out my heart, and I don't have that much left in the book, and I know exactly where it's going to go, and it's all about to turn around and everything's going to work itself out. I bet there's going to be a little bit more ups and downs, but like that moment, that really hit hard for me. And like I'm not fully prepared to finish this book because it's probably gonna make me cry.
The next day.
So I'm in a really good mood right now because I just spent the morning ordering like 18 books from Target. They're currently having like a buy two get one free sale, and every time they have that sale, I always make sure to order some books because I love saving money on books. So right now I'm like jumping out of my skin excited for everything I just ordered, which is kind of funny because I also finished Broken Night last night, and this book actually made me cry really much, and I wanted to like kind of come on here being all somber or whatever you want to call it, of like, okay, this book kind of broke my heart and I'm so sad about it, but really I'm really excited because I just bought books, so now I'm a little bit on a high. But I wanted to tell you what I thought about the end of this book. So it definitely made me cry, and I'm giving it a 5 stars, but I have a lot to say. So first of all, I don't think I've cried on a book since Exodus, which is the second book in the Ravenhood series. That book literally broke my heart, and I hardly ever cried. Like literally, I'll get very emotional, but I won't actually shed a tear. And for Exodus, I shed a tear, and this is the second book since then that I shed a tear for. So I very much loved it, and I really did think that this book was perfect. But I want to strongly point out that I very much wanted to take it down a star just because 3/4 of this book, my stomach was literally in knots. I lost my appetite yesterday, and I really didn't like it. But that was because of the whole cheating stuff that was going on. I already explained it, so I'm not going to go over it again, but I'm not a big fan of cheating. And when I see that in books, it doesn't like sit well with me, and I didn't like that. And I didn't really like how that played out in this book, even though it all ended up churning out okay. But I just don't like reading about that, and I somewhat wish that there was another way they could have made this story interesting other than the way that it actually went down. But it wasn't actually cheating, and therefore it's going to be like the one time I'm going to let it slide. Like if I ever had to read a book that had to do with cheating, it would have to be the way that this book went down. And because it was so perfect and it literally made me cry, and I loved the ending, I thought that it wrapped up so well, and I think this is one of like the best books in the entire universe. I'm gonna have to give it a 5 stars because I literally didn't do anything else yesterday other than reading this, and I like to rate my books based off of how invested I am in it as well as how good the story goes. And because I was so freaking invested and the story was so amazing, I'm going to give it a 5 stars. But really in my head, I want to bump it down just because 3/4 of this book, I literally wanted to throw up. But basically, I very much liked how it all played out. And also I kind of cried because if you've read Ruckus, which is the second book in the Sinner of Saints series, then you know what I'm talking about when I say that what almost happened in that book that made me shed like a tear or two in the like 2 seconds that I thought it was real ended up happening in this book. And I kind of knew that that was going to happen just because it made sense. I knew what I was getting into when I was about to read the Book of Night, which is Dean and Rosie's daughter. And basically, even though I knew it was coming, it still kind of broke my heart, but it played out in the most amazing way possible that I literally can't complain about anything. But basically, I really liked the book. I liked the romance. I liked where it ended up. I really think that Knight and Luna are freaking soulmates, and there's never going to be a better romance of friends to lovers than Knight and Luna. So like freaking, I'm going to love them forever. And also I wanted to say that because this is part of like, a larger universe, I very much liked how we got to see all of the other characters in this book. This was, I think, the heaviest book that surrounded all of the characters from the universe, all of the adults from the Sinner of Saints books, as well as all of the kids that we're getting to see in the All Saints High book. And I really like to see that, we're reading a single romance, but it's also a companion series. And I just very much liked seeing like everybody coming together for this book. So I really don't have much complaints about this book other than my personal preference of never write cheating into a book. So really, I loved it, and basically, I don't think I have anything more to say. So now that we're done with this one, I am going to be reading the last book in the series, which is Angry Gods, and this is about Vaughn, which is Vicious and Amelia's son. It's a son. So it's about Vicious and Amelia's son, which we got to see in the first 2 books of that series. And, Vicious and Amelia, they are the characters from the first book in the Sinner of Saints series. And they happen to be, I think, my favorite from that whole, first series, whatever you want to call it. So anyway, I'm very excited for this book, but I'm not sure if anything's going to be able to beat Broken Night, but I guess we'll see soon.
A little later.
So I'm only 50 pages into this book and I'm already like not loving it so much. I feel like they're trying a little bit too hard to build up these characters and like the storyline a little bit. And I'm kind of seeing like right through it. So it's kind of like an enemies to lovers. We saw that these two people were like interacting a little bit in the first two books in this series. And now that they have their own book, we actually find out that they've known each other for longer than we realized. They have been interacting since they were children. They went to the same art school and, you know, they used to like vacation together when they were kids and nobody really realized that they were friends. And like we're seeing that they actually like knew each other. They weren't friends. They have known each other for a while. And basically when they were in art school as children, Lenora, which is the girl, kind of walked in on something happening to Vaughn. And they don't really tell you what it was that she walked in on, but basically Vaughn freaks out and like bullies her into like keeping his secret. And she's like, I'm not going to tell anybody, like just leave me alone. You're like this scary guy and I have no interest in like, you know, getting on your bad side and whatever. And basically since that little interaction happened, Vaughn has basically hated this girl. And now they're in the same high school. She came all the way from Europe and she's now attending his high school and they're like seniors and whatever. And basically Vaughn is making her life miserable. He's basically bullying the hell out of her, but also at the same time telling everybody to stay away from her, very much like how Vicious happened, like the story of his parents where like Vicious was like a huge bully and like at the same time had a crush on, you know, Amelia, but at the same time like wanted to bully her and wanted nothing to do with her and like that whole mixed feeling vibe. So I'm getting a lot of the same vibes in this book, and because of that I can totally see how this book is going to play out. And also this whole like big thing that is making Vaughn like hate Lenora, like I'm totally seeing through it and I understand exactly what happened to him even though they didn't want to say it. So I don't know why the author is bothering to keep this like a whole big secret, because like I seriously saw through it in 2 seconds and I know exactly what it's going to be. So basically I'm not very impressed so far. I'm going to keep reading it because like I'm down for enemies to lovers, but like I can totally tell right now that basically they're going to turn from like, oh, I hate you into like, oh, I'm actually bullying you because I've loved you this whole time. Like, well, whatever. Also, something that's really pissing me off is that this girl is from England. So like all of her POV, she's like talking in this like European accent, but really they're just like messing with like, I don't know, non-American words, but it sounds so fake. I can't handle it. Literally, it's like, shall I put some leftover lasagna in the microwave for you? And then like another person who's European also was like, that'd be grand, Pop. Cheers. Like, who talks like that?
A few minutes later.
So I just got to page 127 and I first want to say that I'm very much not impressed and I'm really not attached to the story. I guess everything that I already said just made me not very invested in the characters and the actual storyline. But what really kind of whatever bothered me is that at 127, we are now only finally up to where Broken Night ended. So at the end of Broken Night, we kind of found out that Vaughn is going to England. And then the first 100 something of these pages was like, you know, just backtracking as to kind of what happened in the first two books between these two characters. Like there was a lot of overlapping things where it was like, oh, I knew that happened. And then it's like, oh, I knew that that event took place, but then I got to see it from like their points of view. And what I will say, I very much appreciated that it didn't feel repetitive. Like sometimes I do see that where like two books that are in companion series like re-say the same exact scene just from different POVs, and it didn't feel like that, even though we did just go through the same timeline again. But what very much bothered me is the actual time jump. So we're like 100 something pages into this book, and I feel like now it's only going to get started into like what this book is actually about and like where the story's going. And it was just like 100 pages of almost backstory and almost of like laying the foundation for where their relationship is at. And just, I don't know, overall, I'm not very impressed and I'm not really liking this book. I don't know why so much. I mean, I do, but like, I don't know. I really wish I was connecting with it more because at the moment I'm feeling like just skimming through it to see how it goes.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
You know, it's so sad because we started this day out on such a high. I was so excited that I bought all of those books and I was so happy to like be reading the last book in the series. And then I picked it up and I started reading. and it just went downhill from there. I spent all day reading this and I absolutely hated it. I probably should have DNF'd it. Honestly, like at that 100-ish page mark, the last time I updated you, like, I don't know, I felt it then, like I felt zero connection to this book. And yet for some reason I kept going. And to be honest, I skimmed the whole thing because like I seriously like didn't care at all. And even by doing that, I don't feel like I missed out on a single thing, that I totally just could have DNF'd this and probably even read like a whole other book today that would have let me finish my day off on a better mood. But I basically thought that this book was just a huge fail. Let's start with the romance. First of all, we've got these two characters and they both just, you know what, I didn't feel their build up really well. And then, you know, they were kind of trying to build up this whole, like, they have this past and this secret between them and they're kind of enemies now. And Vaughn is gonna bully her. And like, we started off very similar to how Pretty Reckless started off. And then, you know, I just didn't really feel the progression in a very like seamless way. It kind of reminded me of how Pretty Reckless went down, of like one second they're bullying each other and then the other second, you know, they're kind of in love with each other, and then it goes back to like a bully, but like I'm still possessive of you, and then it's like, but we were soulmates and we were meant to be with each other and it's only ever been you, sort of thing. But like in this book, it was even worse because like I didn't even feel a single drop of it. To me, it was all like I was being told it instead of like being shown it. And I really hate when I feel that way about a book, because like I really want to feel it. Like, what's the point of reading a romance if you're not gonna like feel all the angst and the tension and whatever it is that's going on? Like, to me, like I was just told this whole story. I don't know. I just didn't connect with it at all. And then the actual storyline, I just wasn't a fan of it. I thought that there was, I guess, too many time jumps and that it was kind of all over the place. There was too much going on. And like at the same time, it was like, I don't know, I can't even really explain it. I wasn't really a fan of the actual storyline. I thought that it was like a little bit predictable from the first second I picked up the book. I kind of guessed it right away. It kind of played out exactly how I expected to. I wasn't, you know, really intrigued by it. And I don't know, overall, I just wasn't a fan. I feel like I can sit here and just ramble on for like 1,000 minutes and try to like, you know, critique the book and tell you exactly why I didn't like it and like all the little details to it. But like, does it really matter? I don't think so. At the end of the day, I didn't like this book. I really thought it was a fail. It left like a sour taste in my mouth. And I'm kind of just upset that this was the last book in the series, because I was a huge fan of the Sinner of Saints series and I still am. But like in general, for this to be a 3-book series, the All Saints High series, and for me to only come out liking one of the books when I loved literally all 4 of the Sinner of Saints books, like, I don't know, it's just making me sad. I was so excited to see, you know, like all the children and where they were going to end up and seeing their own romances. And like, I don't know, these were all just such a fail to me, besides for like Broken Night. Like, I love Broken Night, so I'm not really talking about that, but like, I don't know, I didn't see like a single problem with the entire Sinner of Saints series. And the fact that I saw so many problems in these books, it just, I don't know, it makes me a little sad. So I finished this book. I don't know, it was such a waste of my time. I'm giving it like 2 stars. I'm trying to be more critical lately about like reading a book. I mean, maybe it's because I'm starting to read so much more, so I see through plot lines much easier, and like I'm just getting used to like, you know, critiquing books better, even if I can't tell you so well as to what's going on in my head. In my head, I'm critiquing it like way more. And this book, it just didn't do it for me. So yeah. So it's sad because I feel bad leaving off on this like bad taste in my mouth. Like, that book went so horribly for me. But like, I just have to remember that this morning I bought 18 books and I should just like ride out that high tonight and just keep thinking about all of the great books that I'm going to read in the future. So whatever. Anyway, I'm curious to know what you thought about this series if you've read it before. Did you have similar opinions to me? Did you feel differently? I'm curious. Do you plan to read this series? Have you read Sinner of Saints? Because I recommend that entire series. But anyway, leave me a comment down below. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not currently subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. And anyway, thank you for watching. And until next time, enjoy reading.